This is my African river aquarium and it has been running for just over 3 months now. And those have been the best 3 months I've ever had in starting a new tank. There's been basically no problems at all. Now I mainly put this down to the fact that we put such a good substrate system in this aquarium because I haven't really got a huge amount of fast growing plants, and yet we're still not getting tons of algae with 2 big 30-watt floodlights lighting the whole thing. Let me take you back to when I first created it because I think it's quite important for understanding the reasons why this has been so successful. So 3 months ago I started the aquarium and I knew straight away I wanted a big substrate system. When I say big, I mean like deep. The reason for this is I just find that it balances the tank so much better than when you just have like a thin dusting of sand or something like that. Now I'm not going to sit here and pretend to understand all the science behind it, I just know that it works for me, so I just keep doing it. So first of all, I filled a load of mesh bags with like a mix of gravel and sand. There's a little bit of aqua soil in there as well. This was all to give height at the back and again, as I say, to add substance to the substrate. Then on top of that, that's where I added bags of aqua soil. Now even though there's not a lot of plants that I'm actually planting in the substrate, it's really good to put this, I've found, underneath your decorative sand layer because of the ability to keep the pH at a decent level. Aqua soil lowers the pH. Now in planted tanks, a lower pH just makes life easier for everyone. After this, the whole thing was just capped with sand, and then we could add in our first pieces of hardscape. I went with massive pieces of bogwood, just a couple, they really stand out, there was no need for any more. I then used river rocks just to give a decorative accent all the way around those pieces of bogwood. When it comes to the planting, I kept things so simple. I actually went with a lot of epiphyte plants, which are plants you just attach to, say, the wood. They don't have to be pushed into the substrate because they pull all the nutrients from the water column. Again, this seems odd given the fact that I put so much nutrients underneath that sand layer, but as you'll see shortly from the result, it worked so well. I went with a lot of Java ferns here, Anubias, different types of Anubias, Bobitus, and then quite a lot of S. repens as well. Now quite a few of those plants are obviously not from Africa, but come on, I mean, how exact does it really need to be? It's a glass box in my studio in the middle of nowhere. I just like to keep the main feature fish in a tank as African. That was the idea with this whole thing. The main thing we added at the end though was the riccia moss. Now I tied small amounts of this to rocks so I could place it in the aquarium and be able to remove them if need be for trimming, or say if I just wanted to move it around the tank, which worked really well, but they have gone absolutely crazy. I don't mind though because it looks so good. Next up, it was time to add the fish. Now, the filters on this aquarium had been running for months and months, so everything was already cycled and ready to go straight away. First of all, I put in a male Crebensis. I did have the female, but we lost her sadly quite a while ago. And I still wanted to keep him because he's absolutely stunning. So in he went, along with all of his babies, so many of them. There must be a good 30 babies in here. After that, I then went to the fish shop to get some more fish to put in. Now I knew I wanted Congo Tetras, and I was sure they had some males, but they'd sold out, so they only had the females left, which made me a little bit sad. So I thought, you know what, I'm gonna get the females. We added in the females, they settled right in and looked absolutely brilliant. During this time as well, we actually added a load of male Congo Tetras to go with the females. Now I did actually want the males from the start, but there were just none available. So when some came up, I just grabbed the chance to get them, even though they were much smaller. It's been about a month since I added the males, and they're already so much bigger. They really are catching up the females already as well. Their colours are so vibrant, and yeah, really good decision to get them. It's been interesting as well to watch them grow and to continue watching them grow, because they're going to get way bigger than they are now as well. So here's the males look. Look how good they look. So got those like blues and greens and those white tips. Look at those tails. The tail fin looks amazing, doesn't it? It's like some kind of like, I don't know, bow or something like that. And then here's the females. So they are less vibrant in colour. They don't have the tail like the males do. They're still a good looking fish though, and to be honest, I'm not doing a massive justice because they're right underneath where all these floating plants are, which we need to sort out shortly. But what's really good is we seem to have just the right number of fish, I think. There's no sort of fighting or anything that goes on. Even Mr. Male Crebensis down here seems completely happy with everything. They're all thinking I'm going to feed them now because we're all stood here. We will do it at some point, but not just this second. But the whole thing has just grown in insane, hasn't it? The Riccia moss, which isn't actually a moss, but never mind. Look at it, it needs hacking right back. But it looks so beautiful right now. Definitely an overgrown look, but I am a massive fan of an overgrown look because it's just so natural looking, isn't it? Look at that. So for once, look at the fish going crazy. For once, the glass isn't too bad at all. This is basically the only thing I need to do in this aquarium now in terms of cleaning, is just a little scrape down of the glass. And to be honest, it's been a couple of weeks and there's barely anything on the front here. There's a bit more on the side parts. That's because I let them go a little bit longer in my laziness. Hey, we've all been there, right? So that's all the glass sorted. Now let's take a look at these floating plants at the top here. This is mini water lettuce. It's a really, really awesome and useful plant. The reason it's growing so crazy is due to the lighting that I made for this tank. So you can see there, it's just a bar that well, it's a piece of wood actually, it's not a bar. It's painted black, and then this is a 30-watt LED floodlight that you'd have, say, on the side of your house, and it's the cool white sort of version. So yeah, it's like that's 6,500 Kelvin, something like that. It's a really good colour for growing plants, I think, and just lighting a tank in general. I mean, it looks pretty dark at the moment, but hear me out. These have grown so much, haven't they? I need to strip them right back. But to start with, I just need to take them all out. The reason for that is when we start trimming this Riccia moss, I mean, you'll see in a minute, it all goes to the surface. And if we've got that all tangled in amongst it all, a little bit like the ones that have come off here, then it's going to be an absolute nightmare. So I'll take out all of it, all of this floating plants, and then I'll keep some of them to put back in. Not many, because they grow so quick. Like a few weeks ago, this was probably like just this section here, and now it's like everywhere. Now obviously I could have used a net to scoop out all of the floating plants, but this is one of those jobs I just like to get in there with my hands. Sometimes you can notice other things, you know, because you're looking closely at the tank. But also there's a lot of little babies in here, isn't there? Well, not babies, but small fish, juveniles now, the Crebensis. If I'm just going in there gung-ho with a net, I could quite easily scoop some up, and I don't want to risk doing that. Right then, there we go, look, the whole top section is cleared out. And here is everything that I'm going to be chucking away or putting on the compost heap. And here is the few sort of nice ones that I want to save, the best ones. I don't know why they're the best, they just stood out to me, I don't know. And now, the real fun begins. trimming the rickia. Yeah, the reason I'm laughing at that is because it's not fun at all. So the strategy here is just going to be to dive right in and just start cutting. Gotta be ruthless because it grows back so fast. But look what it's doing. Look at how, oops, that was close to one of the babies coming to have a look. Look at how it's all just floating upwards like that. It just goes everywhere. Actually, I should probably turn, yeah, I'm going to turn all the filters and that off to stop all this blowing around and getting caught everywhere. And there we go, switch them all off. Coming right down. There's actually some Blixa japonica under here, which I want to expose because it's such a nice looking plant. At the moment, we're not seeing it at all. And look at that, that's one of the issues we have if we leave the rickia too long before we trim it. Underneath it goes sort of like a pale colour. It's not dead, it's just not had any light on it, so it's struggling a little bit. Now, this here is the Blixa japonica. Now that's looking so healthy. It's way bigger than when I first put it in. Again, I'm going to keep cutting and look at all these fish everywhere. I'm going to cut it back even further. So with the rickia, it tries to creep everywhere. It's quite invasive and it tries to take over everything. So what I'm going to do here, for instance, where it's creeping, is just pull that out as well and just keep it in the areas where I actually wanted it in the first place, because it will take over otherwise everywhere. Oh yes, we are looking great again. That really has like boosted the lighting levels massively. Haven't put the floating plants back in yet, but they won't make much of a difference because I'm not putting anything like the same number in. Don't get me wrong, I do like the sort of murkiness that we have, this sort of, I don't know, mysterious look that a darker tank creates, but I also love seeing the colours of these Congo Tetras, the males. And let's face it, to be honest, it's all just going to grow back again in no time. That's half the fun though, isn't it? The Congo Tetra was first discovered in 1949, but apparently there were some difficulties with breeding and we didn't start seeing them in aquariums until the 1970s. Now obviously Congo, they're from the Congo River Basin in Africa, and they can normally be found in streams, ponds, marshy areas and places like that. So in the wild they'll be in large groups. Now this is probably for a multitude of reasons, but usually in nature, a big group can defend itself better against a predator. Confusion, that kind of thing, but also larger groups have more males and females, which means more breeding. More breeding will ensure the survival of the species.